Hi, Chris. I'm glad to be able to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time. So, when I saw I was going to interview you, I was actually quite interested in the job that you do because I think it is very, very interesting to a lot of also indie game developers out there. So, could you quickly describe what exactly it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So I lead a team at Microsoft that includes our ID Xbox program, which I co-founded along with Angela Heschen back in 2013, announced in Germany at Gamescom. And our program is basically a digital self-publishing program for independent developers. And so we work with developers of all sizes, from one person shops, so somebody working in their kitchen or a cafe, like all the way up to studios with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, including some really big names in games. But the fundamental piece of it is that they're independent developers, full creative control over their game, and they want to publish on Xbox, and so we're there to help them.
All right, and the latest game we see it on the background is, of course, Cuphead, the delicious last course, the DLC. It just released. It's a very ambitious and big DLC as well, as I saw and also talked to the devs already. It took time and probably a lot of effort as well. And Xbox supported Studio MDHR, as far as I know, very much on that journey. So, how special was it for Xbox to be able to work with Cuphead?
It was amazing. Like the awesome thing about Cuphead, and of course the game has come out now 4 years ago or five, a long time ago, and the team has gone on to incredible success with DLC, with bringing the game to other platforms, with the Netflix special, with an enormous amount of merchandise. I thought I had some. I just bought some Cuphead washi tape from IM8 Bits. It's really cool.
Oh, washi
Um,
tape. That's
and
cute.
and it's so neat, and it's been so great to see that success. But look, but when we started working with them was way back in either late 2013 or early 2014. And Alexis Garavarian, who was a biz dev for Xbox at the time, had gone on to found Kowloon Knights and Kepler Interactive. Um, he discovered the game, from a Microsoft perspective, on an indie game dev board where Chad and Jarrett were just posting questions about Unity and showing off what they had done. And we obviously the game is magical. Just even the couple seconds of footage that we saw early on, convinced us like this is something that the world needs to see. Although we also said, to ourselves like, oh, this is really hard. Like what they're doing is really, really hard. But what was great about it was that Cuphead was not the first, but it was just a brilliant example of something that we kind of had seen in the marketplace at Xbox 360 and knew in our hearts was like where the next big push in game development was going to come, which was people who were not classically trained game developers, people who were not programmers, people who had not, done their time in the trenches of working in AAA games, but people who loved video games, who were really passionate, who were willing to work incredibly hard and had a fantastic idea. And thanks to the democratization of development tools with things like Game Maker or Unreal or Unity, which is what the game is created in, they were able to take this vision, formed by their childhood experience of watching cartoons and, playing games on their Sega Master System, and turn it into a game. And we were able to work with them in just a small way to help share it with the world, and then to make sure they got a full, that was in 2014. We shared like a little, like maybe 6 seconds of footage in a montage on stage at E3, and it really blew up. And then in 2015, we invited them back and did the I think it was the either the announced trailer or the like launch trailer, anyway, a full trailer on stage at E3, kind of like the biggest stage Microsoft can offer, and really in 2017, probably like one of the biggest stages for a video game ever, and just like sort of say to the world, both like, hey, first of all, check out this game, like it's amazing, and second, this is a really small studio, Chad and Jared and Maya and just a few other people doing this on their own, and this is like what indie development is in 2015. and on. And it was just awesome to be a part of that kind of journey. And I think like the real testament is that like we didn't do that much, right? But we supported them. We gave them the platform. You know, we sent them dev kits, everything like that. And we gave them the platform of E3. But all their success has been their own. It's all from the work that they've done and the team they've assembled and the talent they have and the work they've put in. And, you know, it's just great to see, you know, I obviously follow, you know, Cuphead. I follow the individuals on Instagram, and to just see like, we're going to have a Netflix show. We've got this new merch. We have these new t-shirts. Check out these mugs. It's just like, it's just awesome to see that kind of success happen, and everything that we expected would happen with ID Xbox developers, with independent developers when we started the program. The Cuphead team, as much as anyone, has proved that level of success is real.
And I imagine the first things Cuphead showed, it wasn't really that what we know now as the game, right? It was probably very different back then. When you saw, you said that it was definitely, the idea hooked you instantly. So you thought, yeah, that could be a success. Was there a special thing you thought, like the art style, or was it something else that got you like, oh yeah, this could be a really big success?
So the first thing that hooked us was definitely the art style, and just knowing that the team's plan was to hand animate every frame, to hand draw every frame of a video game. It just seemed really hard. And I think it was really hard. You know, I don't think there was not a secret that they somehow did it faster. Like, it just took a really long time. And as soon as we heard that they were doing that, you know, you immediately understand, if you know, if you've worked in games for a while, like, this is going to look completely unique. And of course, just a couple seconds of footage. I think when we first, you know, started looking at the game, there was maybe like 1.2 seconds of footage. You know, like there was like a finite number of frames that were done, and then there were just a bunch of screens about, you know, just concept art. And as soon as you saw it, you knew it was going to look really special. And then the question is the gameplay. Well, like, okay, it might look special, but how's the gameplay going to be? And to me, like, the magic of Cuphead, I always kind of struggle with this one because the game is so visually beautiful and the technique that they used is so impressive. But like, when you play that game, it is such a well-tuned, well-designed game. And for that to be the studio's debut game, for their first game, you know, for the first game Jarrett ever designed, the first game this studio ever made, to be that just not pixel actually, hand drawn, but that just like perfect in how it controls, is, to me, is like it's just a I want to say it's a miracle, but it's not a miracle at all. It's a testament to their level of hard work and just how intently they dedicated themselves to the game. But it's, to me, it's maybe the most shocking thing about the game, even more than the art style, which is, you know, itself like really amazing. The fact that it's so fun is like, I've just been replaying it because I downloaded Delicious Last Course, and it's like, you know, I haven't played, I think, since 2017, and you know, oh, this game is really good, and then you play it again and you're like, oh my god, this game is really good. Like, it's so perfectly tuned. It's just amazing.
And how did ID at Xbox, like, how did you support that game? What exactly was your role with that?
So we supported it in a couple ways. We did give them like a couple dollars here and there to help them with development, but not a ton, much less than you would possibly imagine. But the way we really supported them was by sharing the game with the world, by using, you know, our platform to help make sure that other people heard about the game and knew about the game. And I think that if there's one piece that Microsoft plays in the success of the game, and I mean, there's a very, very small piece, it's that by sharing the game at E3 and generating like all that attention to the game, both in 2014 and in 2015, and, you know, even other times when we featured the game, I think it gave the team at Studio MDHR the confidence to really go for it. That, like, okay, their idea, that they had this idea, and then people liked it on the indie forum, and then Microsoft liked it, but once it was at on our sort of like the biggest stage you can have for games, and people were like everyone liked it, you know, and like famous people were tweeting about it and things like that. I think that really gave them the confidence to just go for it. And I know that expanded the scope of the game. It probably expanded the length of the game. It probably the game was going to be more boss rush and less platforming and run and gun levels. And so it probably really lengthened the development time in one sense, but it enabled them to deliver. It gave them the confidence to deliver the game they knew they could make and the game that they really wanted to share with the world. I think like one thing in talking to them, certainly at the time, they were pretty satisfied with what they had done. You know, they felt like they had made something where success or failure commercially, they were going to be able to take pride in what they had done. And I think that Microsoft helped a little bit in giving them the confidence to go for that.
So Chris, as someone who works a lot with indie games, probably yourself, I imagine you have also an interest, of course, for indie games. Why do you think that this genre, it's a big genre now, why do you think it is important that we have independent games?
I think it's important for a bunch of reasons. One is it has to exist, right? Like if we go take a long ago metaphor, right? Like when the printing press was first made, you know, the only people who wrote books were people who owned printing presses, right? And then, but there's more stories to tell than just, you know, what the printing press owners wanted to tell. So you had to have independent authors, you know, like get their books made. And video games have grown so much as an entertainment medium that there's just more to explore. There's more stories to tell than you can get from just the traditional publishers. And this isn't to take anything away from the traditional publishers who I think do amazing work. They innovate a ton and have a lot of progression in these like long established franchises and in launching new franchises, but there's just so much more that, you know, I think that, you know, as people who, you know, have grown up in games and have known games since they were kids, that just like, it's just such a ripe space for exploration that kind of has to be done. And what I love about independent developers is that they're always exploring new avenues. And because the teams are typically smaller, and the projects are typically at least start out smaller, independent developers can afford to take more risks, and they can afford to take risks and then maybe just explore like one element to its like conclusion. And so the game might not be as broad as like a, you know, a wonderful AAA game, but it's going to be more deep in its exploration of one kind of area of gameplay or one story idea or narrative idea. And that is just like super cool. And then lastly, the fact that independent developers tend to have the final say over the game. They have complete creative control. They are not beholden to, they might solicit feedback, but they're not beholden to a focus group, or they don't have a responsibility to make sure their game is appealing to tens and 20s of millions of players. They can just make a weird game and that's just wonderful. And I feel like you can feel it when you play indie games. You feel like you're playing either one person or a small group of people's, you know, creative vision, and that it's just really fun.
Okay, so now that we have cleared the why, I would like to know what on the publishers, what is important when they work with indie games? What do they have to? What's the most important thing they have to consider with working? It doesn't have to be small studio, but with an independent studio.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we see a lot of you know, we see traditional publishers publishing games from independent developers. We also see a lot of new publishers and smaller publishers and even independent developers publishing games from other independent developers. And I think the number one thing a publisher needs to think about when they're working with an independent developer is, where do I fit in? It's not what can this developer do for my publishing studio? It's what can my publishing company do for this independent developer? Like, where do we plug in? And developers, there are some independent developers who are ready to do it all. They're ready to do the marketing, the development, the promotion, the PR, the sound, the art, everything all themselves. And there's others who don't want to do all that. Maybe they just want to focus on the game, but they don't want to deal with the promotion. They don't like talking to people. They're shy. You know, there's a bunch of reasons. And that's where a publisher can step in and say, like, hey, you work on the game. We're not going to have a lot of questions about the game. We'll work on the marketing. Or, there might be a developer who's got a handle on a lot of things, but they're just not well capitalized, and they can see that it's going to be, 24 months until the game is done, and they just need money. And so there's other people who can come in and say, like, okay, like, you actually can do the marketing yourself. You've got like a team in place. You just need financing, and we can provide that. And so I think, and then there's a big litany of things that publishers can provide: testing, localization, platform services, like getting the game ready for Switch or Xbox or PlayStation. But I think it's a successful publisher working with independent developers is going to ask, how can I help, and how do we help, and figure out where they slot in, and not try and dictate to the developer what's going to get done.
So I remember I watched a documentary about indie games, and I forgot the name of the documentary, but I remember that the studio behind, or the developer behind Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac, they were especially mentioning how important it was for them on day one to be seen on that front page on Xbox. Like, that was a big moment for them. Do you think, like, this was 10 years ago, do you think this is still the same kind of process small games still have to go through to be recognized or to make it big?
Yeah, I really think, it might not just be on the front page of the Xbox store anymore, although that's still like a great place to be. And we give a lot of advice to developers about how they can maximize their time in our new releases section. But I think the more general issue is discoverability all up. And, again, it's really hard for an independent developer who's probably fairly small to break into the larger cultural consciousness versus, a large publisher who can use, the power of a big marketing budget to sort of buy inorganic promotion, to do television advertising and all that kind of stuff. There's an awesome way to let people know about your game, but a lot of developers can't afford it. And so it is probably the number one thing that we work on at ID Xbox is how we can help developers with discoverability. And whether that's, featuring games at a show like E3 or our summer spotlight, other shows throughout the year, whether it's talking about them on the Xbox Twitter, whether it's featuring them in Xbox Game Pass, like our subscription service. We just announced a new program that'll be coming in the future called Project Moorcroft, which will enable Game Pass subscribers to try out sort of like show floor demos, like you would play at a PAX or a Gamescom, which we think is going to be a really, really great way for devs to stand out. We know demos are really popular, but if there's a demo drop and there's 1,000 demos that drop, you still have the same discoverability problem. And so we're constantly looking at ways to help developers with that discoverability problem. And it's it's something where it also constantly changes in terms of what's the best place to go to help your game get discovered. What are the best practices there? So it's something we're always working on.
Yeah. I know in Germany we have a very active indie community, and it's really on the rise because we haven't supported indies until like the past 2 years or something. So to those new devs who are probably a little bit scared because they are very new to the scene, what would be your advice to get them, like, what do they have to do? What's their side of the job to do when they come to content curators like you or to publishers? What do they have to bring?
Yeah, I have I have a lot of advice there. But I think that the number one thing is just like focus on your game, focus on your vision, make sure that's really great. And then as you don't have a lot of preset assumptions about what's going to work for promotion and marketing. If you are pitching a publisher, understand what you need and understand what you want. Like, hey, I need marketing support and I want QA, and my negotiations with the publisher are really kind of going to be focused around that. And then I would say put some calendar reminders in to surface every 6 months and take a step back from your project. and think about the marketing picture, how you're going to sell the game, what the marketing conditions are. Is it better to announce your game earlier or later? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'm sure the same is true with other platform holders. We do kind of behind closed door sessions regularly for developers, just sharing like the latest statistics that we see and best practices for marketing, what time of year is good to release, what's the best day to release in a week, things like that. And then the other two pieces of advice I'd give is three pieces. One is make sure that the screenshots that you put in the store are the best screenshots you've ever taken. Like, do not, because when a developer is getting ready to do screenshots, they're going to be very tired. It's the end of development. There's such a temptation to just take 4 screenshots in a row, and that's fine. We got to go. Have someone else take them. Make sure those screenshots are great. They really do affect whether or not people buy the game. And then second, the same is true of box art. Don't just design, if you're thinking about console, don't just design your box art on PC where it looks wonderful on the PC screen in front of you. Make it tiny, sit 10 feet away, make it the size of a box in the store, whether it's Xbox or PlayStation or Switch, and make sure that that box art resonates at that size. You might have to make it a lot simpler, but it's something to really think about. And then the last one, oh my gosh, I think I forgot. Oh, no, I didn't. The last one is schedule some time every week to take a break from development. When you're an independent developer and you're working at home, it can be very easy. You're working for yourself. It's true for anyone who works for themselves. It can be easy to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you start to lose perspective. So I'm going to remind people that like crunch is not something that is only imposed by big companies. Crunch can be self-imposed, and take time for yourself. Go outside, go to a park, draw, walk, have a cup of coffee, but like get away from your game, because when you go back to it, you'll have fresh eyes.
All right, well, I think that was really, really helpful. So just to close this topic off with the DLC, you have played the delicious last course, of course, right? What was your favorite part of the game? What surprised you?
I loved it, and I don't know why I wasn't expecting this. I loved the intro. I loved just how Legendary Chalice is introduced. I loved just how they integrated her into the world. And of course, I love her and her moveset and all the new things you can do with her and everything like that. So, yeah. But if I had to pick one thing, it's just I was not expecting so much cutscene at the beginning. And of course, it's MDHR, so it's wonderful to see. So I wasn't expecting that, and I installed it like just at work, and I was like doing other things, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm gonna have to miss this meeting because now I need to watch what's happening in the game. And I'm just looking behind my monitor of a TV, and that was my favorite thing.
All right, yeah. All right, thank you so much. It was very fun talking to you.
Thanks for taking the time, and take it easy.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
The delicious last course.